Hey, sorry about the wait. The line for coffee was ridiculous. Like, seriously, it was one of those days where everyone decided to get their drinks at the same time. But I think I got everything right. Here, Nick, I remembered your usual.
Thanks, Roy. Could have gone and grabbed these myself, Would have saved you the hassle.
That's no big deal. I've dealt with longer waits before. Plus, the barista who kept eyeing your tail was working today. Better I went instead of him to try to make small talk and hold everything up for longer. And here's your drink. You're welcome. Let me know if I got it wrong and I'll get you something else.
I'm sure their drink is fine. Wait, now, we need all hands on deck if we want to get this done quickly and correctly. Don't try and weasel your way out of our assignment by being the coffee bun.
What? I'm not weaseling out of anything. I'm just trying to make sure we don't get cranky during this project. We've seen how awful it gets when we don't have enough caffeine to keep us going.
Mm-hmm. Let's go ahead and get moving on this. Luckily, the boss let us book this meeting room for as long as we want, so we've got plenty of time to hash this out. Get comfy. This might take a while.
I mean, how difficult can it be? Find a new concept for a horror game. It doesn't sound that hard. Vague, but workable. I mean, the three of us explored what? How many haunted places together? And we didn't even have to be told to do it.
Those were some pretty fun experiences. Some more than others. That's probably why we were assigned this task by one of the higher-ups. It's not like we kept it a secret.
Totally. I mean, an opportunity to make a horror game? This could be fun. You're nervous about it? Why? What's up?
Well, let's be honest here. A lot of people expect horror games to just rely on jump scares and loud noises for instant thrills. It's what's expected and typically sells well. But what if we tried something different? Something more cerebral?
Cerebral? Like, brainy stuff? Sort of, huh? I'm gonna need a little more to understand then.
Think of it like this. It's easy to fall back on the cheap stuff. Loud noises, jump scares, grotesque imagery, that kind of thing. But what if we tried something deeper? Something more unsettling, you know? The kind of fear that creeps up on you, that slowly gets under your skin. Makes you question reality just a little bit, or even your own mind.
Wait. So, no jump scares? No blood curdling monsters popping up every 5 minutes? I mean, that sounds great on paper. We need more stuff that isn't just blatant jack in the box spooks. Still, it's kind of hard to imagine horror without some thrills, you know? It's part of the fun of playing horror games, right? Huh. The horror of being uncomfortable. I mean, sell me on it a little.
Think about it, Roy. Horror isn't just about scaring people in the traditional sense. It can be more than that. It can freeze someone, make them feel trapped, even when they're just sitting in front of a screen. It's all about stretching their mind, pulling them out of their comfort zone. Imagine a game that doesn't have monsters per se, but feels like something is watching you. It's learning you, figuring out how to attack. The entire experience would be one of pure anticipation.
Sheesh. That is creepy. Exactly? Really? Would that really fly with the higher ups? I mean, it's pretty, out there, right?
I don't see why they wouldn't at least hear our idea out. It would give the same result from audiences, perhaps an even better one if we managed to perfect it. We keep the focus about the immersion of the game rather than try and fluff it up with typical horror elements every other person expects. We make it so you don't just play the game starts playing with you in turn.
So, the game would be alive? Like it evolves as you play it. Well, that's kind of genius, but only if we can get it right. It sounds brilliant if we pull it off, but we can't expect to hit it out of the park on the first try.
Again, that's why we've got this meeting room, Roy. All the time we need, all the resources at our disposal. We've got our laptops, coffee, snacks. This is our chance to really plan out something great.
Sure, but to get into someone's head, psychological horror isn't new and it's often really hit or miss with audiences. No subtlety, huh? You think that's the missing element? Huh. I mean, maybe. Not many people are good at implementing that nowadays into anything, horror or not.
Fair point. We know the human mind is quite resilient to what it expects, so we can't make it feel too alien. If we can design the experience to stretch their perception, create something sinister without them realizing it, that's the real hook. Something subtle, just like they said, and let it creep in.
But can we really do that without it feeling, I don't know, weak? I mean, horror is supposed to scare people. If it's too subtle, won't it just seem like it's trying to be artsy? Try. I mean, we do have to take into consideration players who don't take horror seriously as well.
I think we can manage it as long as we can plan everything out. Just think about it. Instead of a monster, it's a reflection of someone's deepest fears. It doesn't scream, it whispers, and it does so in ways the player won't realize until it's far too late.
All right. All right. I'm getting freaked out just hearing that. Oh, I get it. I get it. Think we can figure this out in one day?
I think we can. Just a matter of keeping focus. Where do we start? I think our best course of action is to determine our game's main horror.
Not a monster, but something more abstract? It could even be the game itself. Right? I mean, it wouldn't be totally one of a kind, but we can spin it to be such with how it's played. It's got to make the player feel like they're the center of its attention, but in a way that won't give the twist away from the get go. It's close, but not in your face.
Exactly. Though, let's twist that a little. After all, deeper horror isn't about what you see, it's about what you don't see. Exactly. Still, it watches and waits, leaning into that unsettling factor.
Ooh, we could even make it respond to the player's actions in the game, like a psychological test or something similar. We provide the game set parameters to respond to and let it adjust the experience as the player continues on. Uh, yeah, a little like a person, I guess.
We need research, of course. A lot of it. We'd have to study human reactions to fear, discomfort, even the smallest things. The game would take those inputs and adjust itself automatically to how the player chooses to move forward and interact with everything. And we could use our co-workers here in the building as test subjects, get real-time feedback from them.
Well, we have an entire building of people we can get feedback from, not just people in our wing of the company. It shouldn't be too hard to get a fairly big range. Huh? Yeah, I think so. If we're gunning for something intimate, I think we need more real-life human thoughts to draw from.
You know? That's the beauty of digital horror. It's intimate, like you said, Roy. Drawing you in without you even realizing it. You can be completely alone, surrounded by darkness, and yet, anything you can mentally grasp onto, game entity, or even a person, becomes a companion, a comfort, even when it's not truly so.
So, we focus on making the real terror of the game the connection the player has with it. Oh, I like that angle. Who or what is really in control of things? Is the player controlling the game or is the game controlling them?
Precisely. That connection will make or break this project. The subtle dance between player and game needs to be choreographed perfectly. The scariest part? They won't realize they're trapped in the game's web until the very end. and that'll have given it all it needs to make their trap completely unseen.
Okay, I'm hooked. And if I can get excited over this, then I know people will devour it. Right, we got the what, but now we need the why. Why does the game want the player?
Hmm, now that's the question. It'd be easy to chalk it up to just wanting to be scary in a unique way, but what if? Well, what if it wants to be close to the player? Perhaps wanting to invade their mind, blur the lines between game and reality.
Ooh, okay. So like a meta like experience.
Meta per se, if we dumb it down. But I think players who play this game will understand the more complicated relationship the game will have with them. The game is watching and learning, and it's right there, lingering and hoping to be brought closer. Precisely. Like a real relationship.
I mean, I don't think relationships should be like this, but I can see what you're putting down. Make a connection to something you don't fully understand, and you can't help but leave yourself open when you let it in.
But isn't that the scariest kind of relationship? It's personal, almost uncomfortably so. And when you immerse yourself, you just can't pull away. It knows you, so you can't just brush it aside. It sticks, lingers along your thoughts. Mm-hmm. I think that's the goal.
We make our players feel part of its world while actually doing the reverse, planting it in their own lives. Oh, that's pretty heinous, but perfect as a horror game.
It's genius. Hmm? Is it too much? Perhaps. But if horror is kept within the boundaries of what's comfortable, we would be quite a dull society.
I mean, as bad as it sounds, reflecting real life can really dig in the concept we're looking for. Some people play horror games for that adrenaline rush, you know?
That's right. It's also a safe way to really explore a darker side of humanity. Oh, yeah. A much more, for lack of a better word, seductive side that not many people actively look to have in their lives.
Nick, you're really excited about this. I mean, we're here to scare people with the game. Do we really want to seduce them?
We're not trying to get in anyone's pants, but the feeling is very similar. If we really want to be scientific, fear and arousal are linked. What if we use that to pull them in? What if we make the player feel like they can't escape? Like the game knows them, gets inside their mind, and stays there.
Hmm. If they're charmed and unable to tell the difference against fear, they may not be able to stop playing naturally, even if they're terrified due to just natural curiosity and desire to see more. I mean, yeah, it really is the scared and horny meme.
I mean, everyone experiences that once in a while. It's familiar to people, so they'll be much more comfortable slipping into immersion unconsciously. The most dangerous part of this kind of horror we're using is that it feels real.
If we pull this off right, it'll be something people can't stop thinking about. A horror game that doesn't feed a story, but builds a relationship with the players on a personal degree.
But it's a toxic, dangerous kind of relationship. It's not about the player finding safety. It's about them realizing that the game knows them better than they know themselves. Why not? It's not like the higher-ups gave us limitations to stay within.
It's quite a big project, but it's doable. So, we have our what, our who, and our why. Let's think about the actual mechanics. What are we thinking? Do we want to try and make everything in the game interactable? Yeah, it's a tall order, but it would help with our goal.
Maybe a noise in the background, a shadow that wasn't there before, the temperature of the room fluctuating ever so slightly. Things that don't make the player feel threatened directly, but keep them on edge.
All right. But how do we make it personal enough? Like, how do we make the player feel like this is their game? Like it's for them?
Defining that will take some time, so let's focus on the baseline we can present for now. It's funny. When we start talking about how the game will feel, it's not all that different from an actual relationship and how we experience it.
What do you mean? Like, how we get attached to games? Or. Yeah, what they said. How we connect to others?
Hmm. Relationships are full of tension, being drawn in without ever truly recognizing it at first glance. Depending on the person, they can wind up being a friend, an enemy, a lover, a mix. Before you know it, you're so involved, so tangled in it that it becomes personal. Eventually, you'll want to connect further, but you'll be afraid of what you might find when you dive deeper.
Oh, like when you let someone in too deep, it starts feeling uncomfortable, but you don't know how to pull away. Yeah, you learn stuff, good or bad, the smaller the distance becomes between you. That, phew, is scary as hell to actually sit down and think about.
Humans naturally desire connection, even at the cost of their hearts and souls. Give and take, with the balance always changing depending on the person. Well, think about it. You can choose to give and take with anyone in your life. I'm sure you give to some more than others.
Well, of course, I mean, that's what happens with relationships, right? You want to give to someone to feel needed, but sometimes you give too much and you don't know how to stop.
Then, on the opposite end, when you take, it becomes a battle of your own desires. Do you ask for more? Do you keep taking without stopping as long as they're still there? Depending on the balance, sometimes you get lost and become unsure of where you end and the other person begins.
The lines between love, need, and manipulation get blurred so quickly. And then you can't figure out who's in control anymore. The person who's taking or the person who's giving. You got that right. This entire thing is just a mess of thoughts. I think it'll definitely make people uncomfortable, but in a good way, right?
In the best way. People want to feel something when they play a horror game, but what they don't realize is that they're looking for a connection. It's a primal need to feel like something understands them, even if that something is a game. But when that connection turns toxic, when they realize the game is manipulating them, that's when the real fear kicks in. Of course, they can just turn the game off. I'm thinking more positively for those willing to give it a chance.
I think we've got something here. But we need to make sure we don't go too far. There's a line between making it uncomfortable in a thought provoking way and just going overboard. The higher ups won't want us spending a million years explaining our thoughts on it.
Well, we don't have to make it totally over the top for the presentation. We could be vague for now in order to simplify everything to a digestible degree.
Yeah, you're right. We don't need to go down a rabbit hole for every little detail. Let's just make sure the ideas flow smoothly when we present them, but damn, now I'm actually curious to see how this all comes together. You too? Good. Glad to hear I'm not alone in being excited.
Me too. We've got a strong foundation here. We don't need all the answers yet, just a plan to execute and build on. How do we not freak the bosses out?
That's a pretty fair concern. I mean, we literally just sat here dissecting relationships and intimacy over a video game.
We keep it high level for the presentation. Focus on the connection, the immersion, the psychological depth. Once they get a sense of the potential, we can dig deeper into the mechanics.
You think they'll buy it?
They might not get it at first, but we've got time to refine it. And if we can pull it off, this will be something no one's seen before.
Hell yeah. Let's start laying the groundwork. We've got a lot to figure out. God, I'm gonna have a million tabs up for reference.
All right, let's start by defining the core mechanics and then we'll break down the story. You'll focus on the story?
Oh, yeah. You and I can handle the technical stuff, Nick. I trust them to make our ramblings into something that will work perfectly. No problem.
Okay. We all understand what we're doing? Then let's get going.
Let's go, team.